morning, everybody. I'm Susan Howard, a local criminal defense and domestic violence attorney here in Brookline, and this is Brookline Interactive's group safety net show dedicated to domestic violence, and during COVID, we've expanded our subject matter. We are most pleased to have Brookline resident, attorney, and reverse team Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, Bonny Gilbert. Welcome, Bonny.
Hi, Susan. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm delighted. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're a Brookline resident. How long have you lived here, your family, and your professional background? It's quite impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've been in Brookline now for almost 40 years. It's hard for me to believe that. I think it's 36 years. So I've been here for a very long time. I live in Washington Square, and I have 3 children. One is still in the Brookline school system. She's a junior in high school, and then I have 2 older children who are launched and on their way. And so, I've been very involved in the town for a very long time, including chairing PTO at Drill for many years. But now currently I am a reverse mortgage lender for Fairway Independent Mortgage. Prior to that, I spent 10 years as a criminal appellate defense attorney appointed for indigent convicted individuals. And I also had spent a little bit of time as an assistant attorney general in Massachusetts. And prior to that, I was a vice president at Lehman Brothers as a stockbroker for about 10 years. So
wow, what a journey.
All over the place a little bit. So
I'm going to ask you a trick question you don't have to answer. I imagine that each stage of your journey was fabulous. Is there any one stage that was more fabulous than the other?
It's not that one whole stage was more fabulous than the other. Each one has sort of had different peaks. Like I have to say, the first few years as a stockbroker was very exciting. I loved being an attorney, especially a criminal defense attorney. I loved my time at the Attorney General's office. And I'm sure you can relate to this, Susan. Doing criminal defense work is it's very sad work, especially working with the clientele that I was working with. And after 10 years, I did kind of need a little bit of a change. So I had not planned on going into the mortgage lending business. I just went in. A friend of mine kind of pulled me in after the mortgage debacle, and I've kind of have forgiven him at this point. But I wasn't sure that I loved that business until I discovered reverse mortgages. And I have to say the last couple of years doing reverse mortgages specifically, especially in the last couple of years, it's been very exciting and enjoyable. I love my clientele. That I think is like a running theme amongst all of my careers is really my clients and wanting to give them the best counseling and services that I can. And so that's the key part of all of it, I think.
Wow, it's very interesting that you went to BU in Suffolk Law, as did I. I came to the law very, very late. I think my criminal clients have been a privilege to serve. Domestic violence clients, the same, whether they're batterers or victims. Yes. But I have to tell you, things are much tougher today during COVID than they have been in the past few years. Really hard cases, hard to solve, hard to telephonically get a restraining order. Not that the courts have tried, but anyway.
No, I can only imagine. Yeah, I know.
It's really because the lines get messed up and you're talking to a judge and then all of a sudden you're in bankruptcy court. Excuse me. And there are 3 people on a line. At any rate, you said that there's a common thread through all of your different paths of helping others, but you're also doing something that I find really, really noble. You're a volunteer leader with the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization. Would you mind telling me what that is? I know it's a lot of different faiths, but what do you do?
So GBIO, Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, is made up of over 40 different congregations and other membership organizations such as unions and other small business owner kind of groups. And it's all about community organizing. And what Barack Obama used to do. It is looking for the common issues, problems, social justice concerns and problems amongst our members and their communities. And so to give you an idea of the breadth of the work, almost 20 years ago, GBIO was a key player in getting the Massachusetts Healthcare Reform Act passed. We collected 100,000 signatures in getting that act passed, and we've been involved with healthcare reform ever since. On the other hand, we also were very active in teaching a small group of immigrant moms how to organize in Boston to get money for their local Jeep Jones Park, which was in total, it was terrible. I had no playground equipment, it was unsafe and everything else. And there was no one in the community, giving a voice to this problem. GBIO, through their mosque, brought these women together and taught them how to organize and got money for the park. So it can really run that type of gamut in terms of scope and local issues. So right now, especially in light of everything that's been happening in the last year, we've been very involved with healthcare issues, especially for people dealing with COVID. We were in conversations with the governor and the legislature on the executive orders and on the healthcare emergency bill that's still in conference. We were very involved with the police reform bill that just came out.
I was just going to ask you about that. Can I ask you, and if you don't want to answer, it's fine. How do you feel about the bill that was passed? I hear from basically TV that there's a lot to like, that the qualified immunity is still kind of up in the air. What are your thoughts on the police reform bill?
So I will tell you this, that my area of expertise at GBIO is really in the healthcare arena. I really spend most of my time working on accessibility and affordability issues. We have a fantastic criminal justice team that's been working on the police reform piece. I think that that is basically our position as well, which is qualified immunity is still not being addressed in a way that we would like to see it addressed. However, the post piece, the panel that has been put together to try to hold officers more accountable and such, we are very supportive of that. And we do think it is a terrific start. And I think starting is the most important thing, right? It was just so great to see it not die in committee, which was, I think, everyone's biggest fear. Now, and it has some great pieces in it, and we're looking to see it move forward more in the coming year.
What kind of criminal justice initiatives, I know your area is healthcare, is the GBIO involved in, and how does it keep people safe, particularly now during COVID?
So the biggest issues that we've been focusing on this last year has been the police reform piece, and racial.
I'm sorry, has been what you're fading in and out.
I'm sorry, I've got to stay closer to my mic.
Okay, thank you.
The biggest piece has been, our focus has been on the police reform bill. So we are in coalition with other organizations. Don't get as directly involved in individual service. If someone comes to us with an individual problem, then we work with our coalition partners on that. I can't say that that we have a specific initiative right now for people who are in because of COVID in terms of criminal needs. I can't say that we have a specific initiative for that at the moment.
Do you have a domestic violence component to GBIO? Is there a group working on domestic violence, on what's going on?
There is not a group working on domestic violence right now. But Susan, you want to see that happen, you come join and bring it to the table, because that is how we get our issues. We go to our members, we have house meeting campaigns, we find out what people want to work on, what they care about, and that's how we develop a campaign. So join.
So how does one join? Why don't you tell me and the viewers how you join GBIO?
So members join really through an organization. So if you are a member of a congregation that is not yet a member of GBIO, then you need to be talking to your congregational leadership. If they have an interest in social justice work, then we would love to be talking to them and see about bringing them in as a member.
Bonnie, what if I'm my own congregation? In other words, I'm not a member of a congregation. I go to the Jewish Day School in Newton for the high holiday services. Can I join as an attorney?
So we have been trying to find paths for individuals to join on their own. And there may be a way, I would love to talk to you about it afterwards,
Okay, great.
ways, but that has been a challenge because it is a membership organization through
Congregations.
Right, congregations or organizations.
Right.
Attorney organizations should be joined.
Okay, we'll chat about that afterwards because
Yes.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who would be interested in at least
Yes.
contributing, if not being a member, but I'm sure you want members who are going to do the work. Tell me a little bit about reverse mortgages. What are they and what's their purpose and how do they keep people safe? So
reverse mortgages, I will just say this right up front. I love reverse mortgages. I have to admit that. So yeah, that's how I feel about them because they are a product that was actually created by the federal government because the reverse mortgages have been around now for over 20 years, but they have become much more regulated in the last 7 years, which I'm very glad to see. More protections have been put in place for seniors to make sure that the reverse mortgage is going to help them. And what a reverse mortgage is very simple. It's just a way to tap into the equity that you as a senior homeowner has built up in your house over the many, many years. So you have a house that you've been, that you paid off, let's say, or you currently have a mortgage on. Both people can get a reverse mortgage. It works slightly differently for those two people, but the idea is that if you have equity in your home, you can tap into it and use it for your living expenses now without ever having to make a mortgage payment while you are living in the home. So how does that work? The money all comes due at the end of your time in the home. So let me give an example because I think it's much easier to understand. You're 65 years old. You have a home in Brookline that's worth $800,000. You have paid off the mortgage, but you really wish you had a little extra cash flow. Property taxes are going up, or you want to help your grandchild go to college. You get a reverse mortgage for about half the market value of the home, approximately $400,000. You don't have to take it all out right away. You don't have to owe a lot of money. We make $400,000 available, and you can draw on it when you need to. As you draw on it, you're going to owe that money back. When are you going to pay it back? When you have stopped using your home as your primary residence. So let's say you're 65 and you live in that home for 30 more years. That does not come due until you've either died, sold, because it's just a mortgage. You can sell whenever you want, just like a regular mortgage. You've died, sold, or moved out permanently. That's when what you owe, what you've used, comes due and not before. You have to make sure you're paying your property taxes. You have to make sure you're paying your property insurance, that you're maintaining the home. But if you can afford to do all those things, and we make sure that you can, otherwise you can't get a reverse mortgage. If you can afford to stay in the home, then we make that money available.
Does this apply to condos too?
It can apply to condos. The condo does have to get FHA condo approval. We can do that for one individual unit or for the whole complex. I've done it many times for people. It just adds one extra step. Sometimes you get a condo situation that does not qualify, and then we can't do it. But certainly it is possible to do it for condos as well.
My gosh. Okay. What are some of the issues that you address, like forced retirement, loss of a spouse, general aging in place, a bigger mortgage because the tenant can't pay rent? How do you address those issues?
So all of this is about cash flow. All of these issues are about cash flow because let's face it, what is our most what is our biggest concern as we get older and move into retirement is even if we have a good fixed income, is it going to always be enough, right? So, and that is actually what I didn't say. The reason why the federal government created the program was because there is $7 trillion in home equity in this country, just in seniors' homes, okay? And healthcare costs are going up. People are living longer. Housing costs are going up. And let's face it, we have not seen any huge increases in Social Security. The government is not spending a lot of money on affordable housing. So they decided, well, let's just let our seniors tap into their own money instead, right? So that's what it's all about, cash flow. So if you are, one of the things that I see that I worry about all the time is a couple who are living on their Social Security and they're using one Social Security check to make a mortgage payment because let's face it, interest rates have been really low. So a lot of people have borrowed money to take advantage of that. But now the mortgage payment, $800, $1,200, $1,500 a month. What happens when one spouse passes away unexpectedly? Now they only get one Social Security check. How are they going to make that mortgage payment? So let's get rid of the mortgage payment. We can pay off your current mortgage with a reverse mortgage. Your payments stop. If you want to ever make a payment, you can. You will always there's no prepayment penalties. You can always pay down what you owe if you're concerned about the loan balance getting too big. You never have to. And now you can afford to live on that one Social Security.
Bonnie,
So
I'm sorry,
yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's a good example of where people think that they've got it covered and they may not be looking at the bigger picture where it can really be of help. That's all.
In your work with reverse mortgages, have you ever come across a situation where you suspect domestic violence, elder abuse, harassment, child abuse? If so, as a former assistant attorney general, what do you do now that you're in a totally different field?
Yes, well, part of our training, even though I am an attorney and I know about these things, all reverse loan officers, as part of our examination for getting our licenses, are required to know about agencies to refer seniors to if there are these kinds of problems. In addition, every borrower must have a single meeting with an FHA approved independent counselor. And in that meeting, the counselor's job is to make sure, A, that the borrower really does understand how the loan works, understand their obligations, but also they are looking to see if the borrower is being coerced in any way into taking a reverse mortgage. Also is competent. Do they really understand the responsibilities that they're taking on? So we have a counselor in place. They don't work for Fairway. They are independent. But every borrower must have a certificate from that meeting before they are allowed to go forward with a reverse mortgage.
So I assume these counselors are certified by the state. Do they take a training? What background do you need to be?
They're actually certified by HUD, the housing, housing and urban developments as part of FHA. And so they do have to take training. They do have an exam. And as I say, all of us are supposed to know about the different agencies to refer people to. I will say, I have not experienced an elder being abused by a family member. In my personal experience, I have not, although I do know it happens. What I have seen is will come to me, or their advisors will come to me and say, I really need this money, but I have a child who's always asking me for money. I'm worried.
Isn't that a tip off?
It can be, yes, but it's really more. But what we do for that child, in addition to asking them if they need help, we can set it up so that the borrower is only getting a monthly check of a specific amount of money if they want, so that that big pile of money is not available for them to be tempted to draw out and give their kids a big check, or for the kids to be able to ask for a big check, we can set it up with those kinds of protections as well.
Bonnie, who has to sign these checks? Is it the borrower themselves? Is there any way you can keep the greedy child, for lack of a better term, off of the account so that their names aren't on it, they can't sign
Their
it?
names are not on any accounts. As a matter of fact, to get the money, you actually send in a form that the borrower themselves have signed, and then the money is wired into the borrower's checking account. So the money is never given directly to the child. The child can never directly ask for money, but I have had clients who have felt a lot of pressure from their children to give them money. And that,
But what if their name is on the account, Bonnie? Do you ask that? Who else?
when we get the checking account information, it is typically just the borrower. We can't require that there not be anyone else on, but in truth, usually it's either a trust account or just the borrower's account where the money
Okay.
is wired into. It's not typical that we would wire into an account where there's anyone else on other than the borrower.
Okay. Do you ever talk to the borrower about, well, your daughter, your son is pressuring you, how can we sort of eliminate that, or talk to them about that, or have you spoken to them about it?
It's come up in limited circumstances. Usually when it's come up, I've also been working with their financial advisor or an attorney that's also trying to help them. So it's in those situations, they have in a sense been a little lucky in that they've had more of a team trying to help them address the situation.
So somebody else takes care of it, not you?
Well, we talk about it together, and that's when so I will say this, I always ask my clients whether or not their children are going to know about the reverse mortgage and whether I should be talking to the children about the reverse mortgage. Because I can't tell you, one of the biggest problems that I see is the borrower is afraid that the child is not going to approve, or the borrower passes away and now the kids are mad because they think that the borrower was duped or did something that hurt their inheritance. And it's really important, I think, for everyone to understand how it works, what the benefits are, and that it's best when everyone is in agreement on whether or not the borrower should be going forward. So I always ask the borrowers about their children or other family members, and should we be talking to them or including them? And that's when we'll find out, oh, I don't want my kids to know about this, or, well, I have this one kid I don't want to know because I don't want them to know that I'm getting more money. And so then we talk about, well, should we set it up in a different way so that if they do find out, they get the money directly. So we do have that conversation, or at least I have that conversation with virtually every borrower about the situation.
So it sounds pretty complicated. Bonnie Gilbert of Fairway Independent Mortgage, in our last couple of minutes, what would you say to the viewer? How do reverse mortgages keep you safe? And how do you detect any unusual activity in the home of the borrower?
So in terms of keeping someone safe, I do think that financial security is a big part of being safe. And I think that one of the biggest problems we have as retired seniors is feeling vulnerable because we can't pay our bills, or where are we going to end up, or can I stay in the house, or can I pay for the heat? Knowing that there are alternatives that that the government has put in place specifically to help to make you be able to be more independent and live the life you want to lead as a senior, I think that's very valuable. And that's the role that a reverse mortgage can play. I think in terms of keeping our seniors safe on these other levels, I think one of the things I enjoy the most about my job is having these conversations and having clients, because look, so many of our seniors are so isolated.
Particularly now.
Exactly. And that's this other big fear. You know, people who were working part-time are now in their house. They've lost the income of their part-time job, or their tenant isn't paying their rent on time. And all of these fears are just mental health, physical health. Yeah, so to be able to provide a safety net financially, I think is extremely valuable. And to have these kinds of conversations with seniors, I think is really valuable.
I do have two questions. I was
Sure.
wrong. If there are these mass evictions, as they're supposed to be, because we don't really have anything except what Governor Baker has put in place. Will
Yeah.
that affect reverse mortgages, number one? And what is the alternative? Say you can't get a reverse mortgage. Is there anything else a senior could do to provide income or safety?
Well, in Brookline, in terms of taxes, property taxes, which I know is on a lot of people's minds, I believe that a new tax exemption program was just passed by town meeting about a week ago, and I don't yet know all the details about that. There is also a property tax deferral program and another exemption program. In terms of evictions, reverse mortgage is for homeowners. You can owe money, you can have a mortgage, but it doesn't do anything for renters. By the way, GBIO was also doing a lot of work on housing and the eviction moratorium. So that was our other area of work this past year. In terms of other sources of funds, I always feel badly when I'm asked this, but unfortunately there are not a lot of other programs, that I see available to a lot of people. But I'm always happy to, I'm always trying to keep my eyes open and looking for other ways to provide help, because that is what I enjoy most about my job, is counseling people and helping their situation.
I can see that. I can see that you're happy with what you're doing and that you're very passionate. Bonnie Gilbert, Fairway Independent Mortgage, can you put your contact information up so that Corbin can incorporate it? Corbin, is that okay? Oh,
I didn't mean to do that part, sorry. It's that pushing that return too soon.
so if people want to get in touch, phone number 617-645-8907.
And I'm putting in my email address right now.
Great, great.
There we go.
Bonnie at Fairway MC.
Bonnie G. Bonnie G
Bonnie
with a
G.
Y. BONNYG at fairwaymc.com. Susan, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much for being on our show today. And I hope people reach out to Bonnie if you have senior parents or or if you're interested in a reverse mortgage, and also her work on the GBIO. If you're a member of a congregation, call Bonnie. She's looking for members. Thank you, Bonnie. Stay well.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.